You are tuned into the Power Chord Hour right here on 107.9 WRFA, as well as the Power Chord Hour podcast. Maybe you're watching us on YouTube, however you're checking this out. Thanks for checking it out. I'm your host, Anthony Merchant, back here with you. We got a returning guest, and sometimes we have returning guests, and it's been years. With you, it's been months, which makes me very happy because I had such a great time with you last time. We were talking to Chris Ballew. You may know him from the Presidents of the United States of America. He has a new solo record out now called Void Crusher. His second solo record out this year. That man is not slacking. He's been putting two out a year the last few years. I'm sure we'll get into that again. But Chris, how have you been since we last spoke? How you doing?
Nice to see you, Anthony. Thanks for having me back. I am doing good, man. I'm just still, low-hanging fruit is all I'm about these days, to use a industry term that gets bandied about here and there in the music world. I'm just enjoying life, eating food, seeing my friends, walking around in nature, and writing and recording songs all day long, which is what I was built to do. So I'm having a great time.
I was gonna ask that, last time we spoke was February. It's been a little while. Much writing since then? I mean, have you been doing a decent? I know we're talking the new album, but I mean, have you just been writing a lot the past however months that's been? I'm not going to do the math. Like 6 months.
Yeah, 6 months. I put the records out every 6 months, January and July. So actually, it's been 5 months between February and July. But yeah, close enough. Writing is interesting these days. It's sometimes I sit down with the intention of making something. Like I have all these old scraps, ideas, little fragments of ideas, or old 4-track or 8-track cassette recordings that were, not made to release, but just made to release ideas onto tape. And I'll listen to those and kind of try to pluck out the DNA that makes it interesting or good, and kind of shave away the noise and, out of tune vocals that I did back in the day. And find something that is growable, that I can kind of nurture. I just did one of those yesterday, actually, and I'm working on it today, and it's coming along nicely. But then other times things fall out of the sky. But lately, it's funny, they fall out of the sky in parts. Like I'll get an idea for I'll just pick up a guitar and a little chord progression will happen, and I'll be like, oh, that's interesting. And then maybe 5 days later, somebody will say something at a party, or I'll think of something, and it's like, oh, the theme of those words and that music I've been playing all week kind of dovetail, and I'll put them together, and then that'll grow, or it won't grow. It's interesting too, because I'm kind of like planting seeds, and then sometimes they grow up and blossom, and sometimes they just stay seeds in the dirt. Wait a minute, Seeds in the Dirt. That's a good song.
If you have some chords lying right, if you have some chords you were playing with the other day, there you go. You may have a new hit song right there.
I don't know, maybe. We'll see. It's an interesting spot to be in, because I'm working alone, and working alone has its advantages and I guess disadvantages. But personally, I love it because I can be patient and slow with ideas. I can also later on in the recording and writing phase be ruthless with getting rid of things that aren't working. Instead of crushing the bongo player's dreams, I can say no bongos on this track, and I'm only crushing my bongo dreams, which are not very intense. It's the writing part is kind of fits and starts. But to answer your question, since the release of the last record and this new record, I've written about half a dozen songs. They need to mature, though. None of the half a dozen songs I've written will be on the next record. They'll be on the record after that, probably, because they're like grapes that turn into wine or something. They need to sit around for a while, because oftentimes a year later I'll be like, those are the wrong lyrics, or I'll have some sort of revelation. So.
Is there kind of an average with that? Because I know you go back, we did talk about that last time, and I like it that you will go back through and go through old song ideas and oh no, there is there's redeeming qualities. Maybe the whole song is all right, maybe it wasn't all there, but this melody or this riff or something, with that, going back through, is it never ending pile of old, have you been pretty good at holding that stuff? Because I know nowadays we have voice memos, so in the ages of iPhones, I'm sure you have those sitting around, but a little harder before that. I mean, are you still finding archives of old music? You know, I mean, do those still pop up? Will you still find those old song ideas even now?
I think I've listened to all of them. I think there's thousands of them. And what I did is I had back in the 90s, I had a massive box of cassettes that were full of fragments. And it took me 5 years, not doing it all day, every day, but 5 years of, well, I've got an hour here, an hour there to digitize all those cassettes and turn them into MP3s. And so I have the entire like universe of fragments in my computer. And I can, I put it on random when I'm doing the dishes or whatever and wait for something to pop up. Right now I've had a few pop up and I put them in a folder and they're in my studio computer. So this week and next week, I'm kind of opening those up and I'll put them in a session and cut them up and make a loop out of them or kind of just try to grow something. And so that's, yeah, but I've heard pretty much all the old ones at least once. But there's new ones. As I go around, I'm recording new ones, so I'm constantly growing. I call that group of song fragments my raw poo. So I'm always adding raw poo into the mix. That's actually also trivia-wise the name of my publishing company for the president's stuff is Raw Poo Music. Yeah,
that's amazing. Do you like kind of with that too with the ideas thing? I mean, do you have an average? Like, I'm sure it changes from song to song, but would you say there's an average you sit with a song before you go, it's going in the raw poo pile? Like, maybe there's something here, but let's sit it down for now. I mean, do you find yourself where it's like, I don't know, you work on a song for like a month before it goes kind of over there? You know, is there kind of an average for you before you're like, okay, let's work on this more later? Maybe it's there, but not right now.
Yeah. Actually, no, the raw poo classification is the first appearance of ideas. So those are like recording into a tape recorder back in the day or a phone now. When they become sort of something that's forming, they typically go into the instrumental folder. I have all these instrumentals that don't have, well, they have scratch vocals, some of them like, me babbling nonsense to try to dislodge some idea. So they'll go, if they're kind of not that exciting and I'm not really, feeling like they're on their way to becoming an actual song, they go in the instrumental folder. And then I open that folder up sometimes and just randomly listen to those, and that'll spark ideas. So that's where they kind of live when they're developed, but they're not really, fully formed songs yet. And then they'll become a song. But even then I've got like, I don't know, upwards of 85 songs that are in various stages of disrepair. And I'll listen to them and be like, that one needs this, that one needs that. And I'll kind of tweak them over time. It's like I'm boiling 85 pots on a stovetop. And some of them are simmering, some of them are overflowing, some of them are cold and off. And the ones that are the most like, I guess boiling the most rapidly, they're the ones that get released into the world to extend the metaphor.
Do you I mean that way of writing kind of, I mean, almost putting them in like different groups and everything. I mean, it sounds like someone who understands the way they write music. Like that to me sounds like someone who obviously you've written quite a while, yourself, how you work. Like, is that something you picked up? Like, I mean, is that kind of a way you've written for most of your career? Is that something you feel like you picked up somewhere? Like kind of where did that get introduced in there? Because that sounds so I feel like yourself so well from writing that's that works well, where the first time you ever write a song, you may not know that. I don't feel like that's something day one to work that way.
Oh, definitely not. No, it just the magic of writing songs at the beginning was just so random, and there was no way to organize them the way you can organize them on a computer. I couldn't. All the ideas were like on a cassette, and I didn't know where the idea was on the cassette. I just have to stumble on it. Or listen to the whole thing and try to find it. So yeah, I think it's a function of being able to. It's like a dream come true to be able to like classify the songs as they go through the process of becoming real and kind of keep them grouped, as raw poo, instrumentals, and then songs, and then releasable songs, and they kind of graduate. I do the same when I do art. I have these like, raw sketches, and then I have kind of stuff that's on the way, and then stuff that's done but needs to be reviewed, and then stuff that's ready to post. So I like this kind of like graduating process. I guess it's like, they're freshmen, they're sophomore, junior, and senior, and then they graduate.
The graduates. So you basically do that in most of your creative outlets. It sounds like you found a way
Yeah.
you work well. And if you're kind of creating something, it sounds like you basically go that route.
Yeah, it's true, because some days I don't feel like starting from scratch. Some days I feel like just, turning, like I'll listen to a song and all it needs is the bass to go up 1 dB or something. So some days I have these days where it's just sort of idea maintenance, and I'm not in the mood to go deep. And then if an idea sparks and I am in the mood to go deep, then I've got a bunch of songs that need, like sometimes I have this spreadsheet with all the songs I've got that are in progress, and notes. So I'll just be at home with my headphones on in the house, and I'll listen to stuff. And a lot of times I'll be like, well, the lyrics are all wrong. Like they are not saying what the chorus is saying. And so that's kind of fun, because I've got a group of songs that need lyrical overhauls. And there's times when I get into that mode, especially when I'm not in the studio, when I'm kind of like in the garden, or at night. I like to kind of, I'll watch a movie or something, but I'll pause it every once in a while and listen to something that's in progress, kind of for a fresh take. And that's when I get a lot of good lyric writing done, when I'm away from the studio, but kind of just really hearing the song like somebody else would hear it. So yeah, it's so fun. It's like this endless tinkering on all these ideas that are just bubbling away, and someday it'll run out, or I'll die. Not soon.
Let's hope. Yeah. No, not at all. With kind of going with that, with like, kind of being in chord mode, or I mean, not chord mode, but, like writing the music versus like writing the lyrics and stuff. Do you find yourself like where you'll get in a mode where like for a while where you're talking about that, like it's all kind of lyric writing for you? Like maybe you're not really writing a lot of music, you're just writing a ton of lyrics, and then vice versa. Maybe for a while you're like cranking out instrumentals, but like maybe the lyrics just aren't the thing you're working on for a while. Do you kind of, if you're in one of those lanes, is it hard to go into the other one? You kind of know what I mean with that?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. And yeah, no, it's I don't try to change lanes. I kind of, in general, in macro size and in micro size, I try to follow the impulses, or intuition, or the universe is telling me where to go and what to do next, or whatever you want to call it. But it's just sort of like allowing whatever's happening to be. And if I'm not feeling like, doing a certain kind of writing, what I used to do is just sort of barrel through, like, okay, I'm not really feeling this song, but I'm going to, push it and finish it. And, I want to, because I would get excited to hear the song, but I would try to finish it without really feeling inspired. And I'd end up with a mediocre piece of poo. So, I finally realized I need to really check in as I'm starting an idea or as I'm tweaking a song. I need to kind of check in and be like, is this feeling good? Is it feeling right? Is it feeling like it inevitable and it has purpose and clarity and all that stuff? And I have gotten better at not steamrolling over my intuitive responses to those questions about what I'm working on. So like this song that I'm working on now, right before we signed on, I accidentally erased the whole file. I just recorded a whole bunch of new vocals, all the stacked harmonies, and was like, oh, I got it done before the interview, and then I hit delete. I don't know why. I don't know why.
I feel the pain, man.
I'm not going to get upset. There's probably a reason. I'll I have the session backed up before I did the vocal changes. I'll just open it again. I'll re-sing that stuff. It'll probably be tighter, better. Who knows? So, you just got to roll with it and trust that there's reasons for everything.
Well, I was going to ask too, because like rolling with it, actually, you do seem to have, when it comes to creative stuff, like you're talking about, that patience, like where I think, again, if you force something, like you're saying, like where you're in that mode where you just want to hear the song finish, so you just kind of force it out and it's just not great. I feel like with creative stuff, you just don't get that choice. You don't get to choose if you're going to write a great song today or not. It just kind of comes. But it seems like you've learned the patience for that. Like you seem to, like you're saying, you roll with it, you go with the flow. Like if the creative thing's not happening today, it doesn't sound like you're gonna like bash your head in or like just keep forcing it until, you know, something comes out, whether it's good or not. Just forcing something out. It sounds like you've kind of gone past that.
Yeah, that's true. I somewhere long ago, and I don't know if this is even true, but I remember reading somebody talking about Jimi Hendrix and how he would write songs, and it said that a lot of times he would come up with sort of a concept or a vibe or a general kind of theme, and then he would just think about it for a week. You know, just lie on the couch or play guitar. He was always playing guitar, and he would just let it germinate, you know, whereas my impulse is always like, get me in the studio right now, I gotta grab it, you know, like, so I call that grabbing at ghosts. It's kind of like, come on, wait, and that's a real hangover from being successful on a major label and being in the kind of you know, in the kind of spotlight that, even though my spotlight with the presidents and all that was relatively small, but still in the context of my life, it was a big deal. And it also kind of inhibited me from just purely enjoying playing in the moment. I would try to play in the moment, and I would get this message like, is that a hit? Quick, record it. Don't lose it. It was this fear-based grabbing for ideas. And so, I don't know, I just heard that thing about Hendrix many years ago, and it popped back into my head as I kind of recentered as a solo artist, and thought, yeah, I'm gonna take a page out of his playbook and just sort of allow and be patient and let things kind of, you know, slowly grow, because that's how things grow in nature. You know, a cedar tree doesn't go boing and just like pop up. It takes a long time. So I'm trying to make a bunch of nice little cedar trees that won't fall down.
You know, I've talked to other people, and that is kind of interesting. Like, and it sounds like you do, but did you kind of have, like, after the success of that first President's record, like, you do hear people say, like, once you have that hit single or like you have a big album, you then have to continue on. Like, the thing is once you're at the top of that mountain or like you've hit there, you have to continue that. Like, I mean, it almost sounds like you were talking about there, but did you feel that afterwards? Because it's like, well, now you have hits, but like you have to keep making them to, like, you know what I mean? Like, anyone who has a successful album, you got to kind of keep that up.
Well, the truth is you don't. You really don't have to keep it up. You know, like, you can have one or two hits and then not have any more, and that's absolutely fine. You know, I don't know. I'm listening to this amazing podcast called A History of Rock Music in 500 Songs by this guy, Andrew Hickey. It's forensically researched half an hour to 3.5 hour episodes about individual songs, and he goes into just like incredible detail, and it's very enlightening. But it really shined a light for me on how commerce and the pressure to repeat success has like perverted and twisted and squozen creativity into this product. You know, from the very beginning of popular music, it's been a force that like fear of not maintaining your current level or expanding your current level of success has just like twisted the songs we listen to. You know, like, what would it sound like if people just made music that they loved and didn't think? I'm very proud of what I've accomplished in my career, because I have never done that. I've always made music that made me happy and made the people who were standing in front of me or the people who were listening to my records feel something and feel good. And it happened to click and be successful, but I was, from the very beginning, I was not comfortable investing in the star system or whatever, the success system, for my own peace of mind and self-worth. I could tell immediately that if I depended on that for my self-worth, I was going to crash and burn, because it's so hard to control. You can't control it.
No.
That's what makes creativity so beautiful, is you can't control it. You have to kind of partner with it and ride with it and you know, like, be friends with it. But you can't be like, damn you, creativity, I need you know, a new car. So, although John Lennon and McCartney, of course, they used to joke. They'd sit there mirroring each other, writing songs, and they would sit down in a hotel room and be like, their joke was, time to write a swimming pool. And you know, right.
Oh, I love that. But
yeah.
I mean, you're absolutely right. You know, I mean, again, like, going back to that forcing thing, it's like you don't you can't force a hit song or a popular album. It just kind of happens. I mean, I don't see any of your output and go, oh, like you sat down and you thought this song was going to be massive. I don't get that at all. It does feel, including again, the success of that first record. None of that feels like, oh, a major label put a band together and is trying to get, like, that's not the way you would do it. Like, nothing about that. Like, I love it. It's so unique and it's so itself that it's like none of that is manufactured. None of it. I don't listen to it going, oh, obviously they think they're going to sell millions and millions of records. It sounds like you do it for yourself and the fans. Like, and I think the popular stuff is that. I think if you, again, like going back to if you're trying to force that hit song, it's going to be the total opposite. The more you try to force that platinum record, like if you say I'm going to write a multi-platinum record, I feel like you're going to do the opposite almost.
It's true, man. Yeah, that it creates nothing but mediocrity. I used to do music for commercials and TV shows and movies and theme songs for shows and stuff like that. I pitched a lot for about 10 or 15 years with a friend of mine, and I went back and listened to that music as I was mining for new ideas, and I opened that folder, like all the commercial stuff I did, and it was all so mediocre, just so medium. It was like, if it was one of the pots that I was boiling, it was just like lukewarm. And I kind of had a revelation, like, oh yeah, I remember toward the end of that arc was when, viral videos were a new thing. It was kind of like 2009, 10, 11, something like that. And I would get contacted by various companies, like, write us a song that's going to make us go viral. Like, you can't. I mean, there's no such thing. It's somebody falling off a ladder goes viral. You can't write a song. So, but I would take their $30,000 or whatever and be like, here's your viral song. Good luck.
Hope it goes viral.
Hope it goes viral. I certainly didn't feel well making it, so it must be viral. Yeah.
Well,
so anyway,
let's talk about something that does feel good about making the new record, Void Crusher, which I did. Yeah. I want to ask, like, normally I try to stay away from like, so what's the album title mean? Because I feel like it's kind of a cliche question, but like, I love the name of it, and I guess personally, and you tell me if I'm absolutely off, but like, okay, when I hear Void Crusher, I feel like it's like a creative outlet, like you're crushing the void, whatever it is to fulfill your life. Like that's the Void Crusher. It's whatever hole you have in you, or that thing that is only satisfied by playing music or making art or whatever. Like, I feel like that's the crusher of the void.
No, that's a beautiful actual kind of yin to the yang of what I thought of when I was writing that song and writing the lyrics. Yours is better. Because yours is positive. Like, yeah, you use something positive. Now, see, maybe I released that song too soon. I think I could go back and rewrite the lyrics and it could be a different kind of vibe. No, I wrote it about, social media, like the vortex of being sucked into the time suck of Instagram and all that stuff, because I love Instagram and I'll just sit there doing stuff. I find a lot of inspiration in there actually, because it's like people being people, and that algorithm is really good. It's been like, it knows what I want. It gives me inspirational stuff and philosophical stuff and the occasional like cute baby or car crash, but mostly it's good stuff. So anyway, it's like a love-hate song for the void crushers we have at our fingertips, that kind of thing.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's not what I was thinking at all. But yours also, it makes sense. The song, your explanation, like that also, once you explain it, it's like, oh yeah, that is also a void crusher.
Yeah, right. No, I think I like both. Both are. That's a real big revelation for me, that the song could be taken two ways. That's wonderful. I love it.
I kind of actually, and I had a question for like later on, but it was kind of like that with the relationship of a song throughout time. Like, do you notice that, like a song that maybe you wrote today throughout the years, does it change for you? Like either maybe you find, maybe it means something where it's like, it didn't even mean, maybe it means something now that it didn't mean when you wrote it, whether you intentionally knew that or not. Maybe it was, you know what I mean? Maybe it was consciously or not. Like, do songs, your own personal songs, like, do those kind of change their relationship with you and what they mean to you kind of as time goes on?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. That's part of the process of listening to the old fragments and kind of extracting the DNA of the like finding in a fragment that's very flawed, you know, like it's out of tune, it's noisy, it's distorted, it's weird. I'm singing with a fake English accent, whatever it is. But there is like a sliver in there that is true or trying to be. There's some impulse underneath the junk on the outside that is probably the seed of something better. So that's when the relationship with that old fragment or an old song will change, is when I'll realize, oh, the majority of this is not great, but there is this fragment in there that is great, and I'll take it out. And then, the relationship changes because the song mutates and grows and moves on. So, I've got a bunch of songs I'm working on now. The next album's going to be pretty heavy with old stuff from, aching love songs for distant girlfriends, kind of songs that I'm sort of retooling. There's a lot of evolution with my relationship to the songs, for sure.
I think we talked about this last time, but doing these 2 records a year, like when you're writing the songs, they're not all like say like for Void Crusher, like you're not writing all the songs in one sitting and it's like that's just the album, right? They are jumping around where it's like some songs you're writing right now, maybe some batches will go to the next record, but maybe some will go in a year or so from now. I mean, if I'm remembering it correctly.
And a couple of them, like Above the Weather, were brand new. They were on. I number the mixes so I can kind of tell how old, how like mature a song is. Sometimes they don't need a ton of mixes. Like I think Above the Weather had 4 different mixes and then it was done. I've got a song in here that's got 47 mixes. It's just, and because it's evolved and like, oh, it's supposed to be faster, slower, whatever. And so really what I start with when I'm making a record is I look at the mix numbers and I go, okay, these are really high. So I'm going to listen to this batch first because they're kind of the most mature and see if there's a thread or see how they might, do a mock sequence or whatever, and then learn from that. But I tend, unless of course there's the odd song where it's like I just wrote it, but it feels amazing, and my producers are like big thumbs up, then I'll take a chance and throw it on the record. So, it's not a hard and fast rule, but basically the way I've always described it is I'm constantly working on a lot of songs. When it comes time to make a record, I just scrape the cream off the top and release them. So I never feel the pressure of like, I'm making the record, It's never that. It's always just like, I'm just making stuff and who knows where it's going to go.
I like the way you write. I got to say, like, I feel like there's pieces of ways that you write and the way that you kind of format things that I may myself have to steal for like writing music. I feel like yourself. When I talk to you, like you seem like a man who knows his own, how to write a Chris Ballew song, how it works, your what you're good at, your strong suits and all that. You seem to know it. So
it's really, it's incredibly satisfying to reach this phase where I have full command of my art form, whatever you want to call it, my craft, but no pressure. Like full control, and autonomy. Like I'm doing it alone, which that is just my natural habitat. The band thing was exciting and wonderful, but definitely not my natural habitat. I'm way more the like patient mad scientist at home trying to make Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band over and over and over and over. It's more my relationship to music, because I was listening to that record when I was a little kid, obsessively, alone, in the dark, just like dropping the needle and listening to it over and over. And that's what this new music I'm making, I'm 7 records into this new arc, but that's kind of what I hope people are having the experience, I hope people are experiencing with the new music, is that kind of like it's made just for you, kind of like interior thing, not like, we're at a European festival singing along. Yeah, all right. Although sometimes when I'm writing the songs, I do push them in that direction. If I hear, oh, this would be the song that we would play at the end of the set at, Roskilde or, a giant festival in Europe. And I kind of like make it feel that way. But that'll never happen. But it's kind of fun to play with that atmosphere.
No, I mean, honestly, there's songs. Sometimes I think it does help having that kind of in mind, being like, all right, I want to, sometimes that helps if you just have a vibe, even if you don't have the idea yet. It's like, I want it to sound like this. That can
Yeah,
sometimes,
yeah, yeah.
I did
Yeah,
want to,
well, I was going to say I kind of thought about that because we used to play. Well, we played a few times with the Prodigy. Remember them?
oh, really? Yeah.
I'm a fire starter.
Yeah. Not
And
a band I would think you play it like an
yeah,
interesting pairing.
yeah. Well, we were on the same, festivals, which are very eclectic.
Oh, yeah.
But I remember going to see them every time they played and just being so amazed, and so it was so clear that the music they made was made to go in that environment. Like tens of thousands of people losing their minds is exactly what that music is made for. And it kind of started me really thinking like, well, reinforcing what I had already thought about, which is it really helps your creativity to think about what scenario you want the receiver to be in when they receive it. Like, do you want them to be curled up in bed or at a party going crazy, or with a couple friends chilling out or whatever, and you can then craft the sound. Like that banjo's not going to work for the friends chilling out mix, so I'm going to get rid of that or whatever. You can make creative decisions based on where's it going, and who's going to listen to it and what are they doing.
I mean, honestly, just one more thing on that. Honestly, you just kind of brought up something I never thought of. It's interesting too, where, because again, I think you can control the vibe of a song like that. If you want it to be anthemic, if you want it to be, this is going to sound great in a festival. But just like we were talking about earlier, what you can't do is go, I want this to be a massive, I want to make $10 million off this song. It's interesting how that works. There's some ways where you can morph it and it's not a bad thing. I don't think it's bad to want a certain vibe out of it. Like that's totally healthy, totally normal. But then there's the other way where you can try to morph it in certain ways and it's just total self-destruction. I just think that's very interesting, I guess, when I think about it.
Yeah, well, I think that the impulse to shape the music to work for your listener is giving, and the other impulse is to like write a song to make a lot of money and be super famous or whatever is taking.
Very good point.
So I think that's the difference. It's like nurturing your listener versus like, I'll take that money. You don't need that.
Getting that wallet real quick. Let me grab.
Yeah.
I did want to ask you another song on the new record. One of my favorites on it is a favorite tranquilizer, which was kind of the single off of it. And I think I told you last time I only discovered Morphine and Mark Sandman like a year ago. But I mean, I've been the last years have just been finding out what a genius he is. And I know you wrote a little blurb about that song and about Mark. I mean, is that song pretty much about Mark?
Oh yeah, I've written several songs about Mark. I mean, I've got him on my wall here in my studio. I know this is audio only, but you can see. This is this is a shot I took in 1998. I went out to Boston. I was living in Seattle, but he had to write a song for the Mod Squad movie, which was not a great movie. But he wanted me to come out and help him because he didn't have any ideas. And so I went out and we came up with something. It was a weird session. I remember neither of us were very inspired. We weren't clicking, and it was odd for us not to click because we had a lot of like raw, creative, wonderful times in our past. And I remember right before I took that picture, or actually maybe as I took that picture, I thought, God, we're fucked. Nothing's gonna work. We're not gonna be able to deliver a song for this movie. And I take the photo and put the camera down, and right after that, he turns to me and he goes, "We're fucked." And I was like, yes, we are. But he, in his genius way, took one of those jams that we did and turned it into a song called "You're an Artist." And it's actually a pretty great song, and it's on the Mod Squad soundtrack. So it all worked out. But yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I could go on. Mark is my musical father. This red guitar behind me is the guitar that had 2 strings on it that was in his studio that he had made to be able to play with your fingers instead of a slide. And I picked that guitar up and I was home. That's where I wanted to be. But yeah, I would not be nearly as in control of my craft and where I am success-wise without Mark as an influence in my life. He was a fantastic human being. It was just like last weekend, actually, the 25th anniversary of his passing. So,
oh, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, he again, like I about around this time last year is when I discovered Morphine and just all his projects, and just like, how did I not know about this? I don't know how I never. It like blew my mind. You almost like it's one of those moments where you're happy you found something, but you're also kicking yourself where it's like, why did it take all these years? How is this just now on my radar?
I know. I was like that with LCD Sound System. I remember staying in New York in a boutique hotel in like 2006 or 7 or something, and the hotel had partnered with his record label, so there was a turntable in the hotel room with all DFA records. And I remember thinking, oh, this is a thing, but I don't know, I don't really get it. But then I watched that movie, Shut Up and Play the Hits, about their last show, which, if you haven't seen it, it's a fantastic movie. Not only about them as a band, but just about being in a band. And I watched that movie when I was struggling with quitting the Presidents, and it really influenced me. And I thought, well, and they broke up after that, big show. That was their final show. And I was like, I missed it, And then lo and behold, they came and played at this big festival near Seattle, and I saw them, and it was transcendental. And they're still out touring. So anyway, I know what you mean. Fortunately, I was able to close that gap, but with Mark, you're not able to. So that's a bummer.
We do have a lot of music. I will say I'm still going through. I mean, I say Morphine again. There's so many projects. Like, I'm still going through his catalog. So at least he left like a very big catalog. It's hefty. It's not like one record. It's not like, oh, there's like that one record and that's it.
Yeah.
I did want to ask too with that, because like the 2-string bass and everything, it's kind of interesting because, like, I mean, I think of you and I think of Mark Sandman. Those are the two with a 2-string bass. Like, it's kind of with something like that, when you don't have a foundation, particularly like when you pick that up and you start playing it, it's not like you have 50 bass players to be influenced by or try to play like. So when you started playing that, I mean, were you trying to almost, for yourself personally, like, are you trying to build off what Mark did on a 2-string? Like, are you using that as some foundation? Are you starting off where it's just like, I'm ground floor, like, this is it. I have to just figure this out myself. Because again, you're playing an instrument that there's not like 100 years of artists to look back and like, okay, this is how you play or this is how you do it. I mean, you're kind of an originator of something like that.
Yeah, although I think for Mark, especially playing the slide, I mean, he had some slide guitar references. There's countries in Africa where there's a guy, Hassan Hakmoun, who Mark turned me on to. Mark was super into world music back in the 90s, and a lot of countries have these like 3-string gut guitars with like a broomstick, so that's their slides. So there's a lot of African influence in what Mark was doing, but the version I picked up in his studio, this guy over here, was again set so you could finger the frets, and so it was less of a leap for me. It was more like, I'm not hitting strings by accident. I've got this like easy way to make a couple of strings really kick ass, and it opened up a lot of possibilities. But it was totally unrelated to what Mark was doing, because he was way more rooted in blues and African music, and I was more like pop and punk rock and funky grooves and all that kind of stuff. So, Mark was into funky grooves, but I was into like hyper funky grooves, like a lot of notes. So, anyway, it was pretty much way more an extension of me. I was already playing a 4-string acoustic when the 2-string came along. So I was like, that's even better.
Like you said too, less strings to accidentally hit.
Yeah, less to accidentally hit, less to tune, less to change, less to buy when that was a consideration.
How about, again, I know the new record is out now, and like we've mentioned, you're kind of putting out 2 records each year for at least foreseable future, right? There's not really an end date, no expiration date on this.
No, I've got 90 songs right now in the final. They're in the folder before they go into an album folder. Yeah, so 90 seniors.
Have you started thinking about the next album, or can you kind of take a break? Like, is this kind of like you got a little chill out time now? Because I kind of get the feeling like you're always thinking about it. I mean, if you have 90 songs, I don't know that you're ever not totally thinking about it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I am. It's funny. I get excited to start sequencing the next record, but the anticipation kind of makes me want to savor it. It's, making the album is a little harrowing. I gotta say, it's when the fun of making messes stops, and the sort of job of making the album feel good and feel like an album starts. And that means listening to it in the car and listening to it on like the Bose Wave radio, which is kind of analogous to what people might listen to on their like computer speakers or something. Listening to it on the laptop, on the phone, on headphones, on these other headphones, so, and then every one of those listens has notes like, all right, these two songs need this flip, or this song doesn't want to be on the record, it needs to go off, I need to find another one, that kind of thing. Or there's too many solos with clavinets next to each other, I've got to either move them or replay the solo with a different instrument. So I really like the album flow. Kind of can change mixes sometimes and change lengths of songs, and definitely the order, but so yeah, and that gets kind of intense. And then I pull out a spectrometer, like a spectrograph analysis thing, and see. I'll play the whole record and look at it and say like, all right, this has bass spikes, or this song is too quiet. So there's the mastering part of it too, which I do myself. So it can get a little like forensic and intense when I'm actually making the record. So that's why when I'm done with the record and I give it to my distributor 3 months before the release date, I don't listen to the record until the release date. And then I have like a ceremonial headphone listen on a like recliner in the shade in the garden and listen to the record for the kind of the first time in 3 months and hear it as other people are hearing it. So that's my process. Is I make messes for a while, and then I get really intense for about 6 weeks, and then I leave it alone, and then I listen to it 3 months later. So that's
Has any album or anything like when you do that, because 3 months you kind of give yourself time to like be removed from it, has anything, I don't know if shock's the word, but like where you just listen back to the album you just made, but 3 months removed, you're like, it just almost sounds like totally different, or not, like in a good way too. I mean, it'd be a good way, but like totally after that time removed, it's like, wow, when I'm not listening to it, when I'm not working on it 12 hours a day for weeks, and I'm, away from it for a while, is anything drastically different when you take that time away?
No, not really. I think by the time I release the record, I've done my best. Like there's a point where I'm like, all right, now I need to do another listen in the car. And now I need to and I get to a point where I'm like, you know what? I've done 5 listens in the car, 5 listens here, blah, blah, blah. This is the best I can do. So I've pretty much, I've made the record I want to make, and I don't get a lot of surprises. The one thing I kind of am biting my nails when I do the listen after 3 months to make sure there's no like glitches or mistakes, or, I'll do a glitch listen where I'll just listen for pops and clicks, and I'll go like when your tongue clicks when you say la la la, I'll go in and take those out. I get really forensic. I cannot stand the noise element of vocals when it gets too like clicky clacky. So, or there's like little digital bits, or artifacts from edits and stuff like that. So yeah. But so that's my fear as well. I'll put it on after 3 months and be like, oh God, listen to that. There was one glitch in one song on one album, and I don't even want to think about it.
Let's not talk about it.
Of course, there was a glitch in Lump like halfway through.
Really?
There was this like digital glitch that none of us heard until somebody pointed it out, and we're like, oh my God, there's a huge mistake in there. Anyway.
It's all those little things only the artist knows. Most people
only the artist.
Only you.
Yeah.
Well, just a few more here for you, and great talking to you, man. I did want to ask a little bit. I wanted to get into it. I can't believe it's been a decade. I remember actually being whatever you want to call it, kickstarting it, but it's been a decade since the president's put out "Kudos to You," which is, I don't know, to me it's insane. You wrote it. I don't know if that's insane to you to think it's a decade later. But just thinking about it, that's the latest president's, studio album and everything, a decade removed. How do you, when you look back on that album, like, what do you kind of think? This is kind of going off that 3 months removed. How about a record 10 years removed? How do you kind of look at that? Kudos to you.
Boy, you're making me want to listen to it. That's for sure. I might throw it in the car next time I go off island, but, it's funny. We're coming up on 10 years. Our final show was in July of 2015. So we're 9 years out. And the first time we broke up in Last show was January 28th, or January, 28th, 1998. And then we got back together New Year's Eve, 2002. So that was a 5-year breakup. So now we're way beyond the length of our last breakup. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Time is so elastic and bizarre and relative. In some ways, it feels like that just happened, and in some ways, it feels like it never happened. You know, like it's another life. But I'm proud of all the president's records. I'm really proud of what the presidents did and what we accomplished and everything. It was just like an incredible arc. You know, really like. Classic, you know, like overnight success, hit record, band is exhausted. They make a second record while they're exhausted. It's not as good, you know, like lead singer quits, band breaks up. 5 years later, band gets back together, goes on tour. Guitar player quits, new guitar player, 13 more years, 3 more records. It's just like this kind of like classic rock and roll roller coaster that I got to ride, and I'm so grateful that I got to ride it. Oh my God, the luck involved is astronomical, and I thank the universe every day for that wonderful ride. It was great.
Nice. I mean,
it was great, but I am so glad it's over. I'm so glad it's over.
I believe you though. Like what I like is like and talking to you, you're still putting out great music. Like I still love what you're doing. And I believe you when you say that. Like it's like I think you are very happy with what you're doing now. You seem fulfilled. You don't seem like there's a big old void because you're not in the presidents. Like it's not. I don't get that vibe from you. Like you're clamoring like we got to do this again. You seem like a musician who's very satisfied with what he's doing. Like you're very happy with where you're at creatively. It seems.
Yeah, and you know it's kind of the cliche, like, you know, where are they now kind of thing. Let's find out where the faded rock star is. And they always say like, I'm way happier now. And you're like, no, you're not. I mean, the average person would listen to somebody talk like that, who's had that kind of success and not believe them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
they're trying, it might come across like, oh, I'm trying to sort of sugarcoat my, the low point of my life now that I'm a washed up rock star. But, no, I honestly am so happy to have had that ride and to now be on it's like I was on a crazy roller coaster and now I'm just on the little, like, you know, kiddie cars going around.
It's still fun, but it's not as hectic. It's a little,
it's still fun. I got a nice little yellow car and I'm just going around, but it's like really gentle and smooth and wonderful. Yeah.
That whole arc you're talking about too, I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, I mean, that whole, I mean, I guess experience with presidents, everything, are some of that stuff things you can't really, until you like look in the rear view, like is like some of that stuff you can't process until you're out of it, like until you're no longer the front man of the presidents. Is some of that stuff, you know what I mean? Like, does it compute later on more than it does when it's actually happening? Because I feel like when you're in the middle of it, it has to feel totally different.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the first phase, the first 4 years, the real crazy whirlwind years, boy, you know, my relationship to the band was kind of adversarial. Like, I really grew up like a DIY person, you know, like I always loved the punk rock ethos and the DIY thing, and getting signed to a major label was fine. I wasn't going to say no to that, of course. It's like this great opportunity and all that. But like my core value system didn't really jibe with it, and we were asked to do so many things that were like, you know, getting up at the crack of dawn and flying across country to, like, you know, stroke the egos of some radio station that was not going to play our single if we didn't like show up at the crack of dawn and play music for them. It's just like, no, I don't need to do that. But it did change. We broke up for 5 years. When we got back together, it absolutely, the perspective changed, because the feeling I got in the rehearsal space as we got ready to play our reunion show was, oh my God, we are the greatest President's cover band ever. You know, like I felt this really nice ownership, but also detachment from the pressure. You know, it was a moment where I realized like I was kind of attached to the music, but also detached from the sort of depending on it for my happiness and my artistic identity and self-worth and all that. So it was this really nice ride along with the sort of legacy of the band, where I didn't feel I didn't feel like it was live or die, to succeed or whatever. I just felt like we could enjoy romping around with these amazing songs that we wrote and people love. And so we started playing more shows, and eventually had a whole other 13-year arc as a phase 2. So yeah, that was really great. It really was wonderful to sort of be in that cover band and just celebrate.
That's why I also believe you when, like, again, the fulfillment of now, because like even that, like you're talking about, you detach yourself. You seem, again, just very well rounded with that. I guess I have talked to people who, yeah, they probably do wish they could like relive those days or stuff. And it's like with you, I'm like, no, you seem very. But I don't think you're lying when you say you're happy with what you're doing now. I believe you wholeheartedly.
I can have a President's Reunion anytime I want, because I can just pull down the guitar that I played on the album and just be like, well, I don't even know where it goes. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. I don't know my own song.
I mean, I can't tell.
I can just have, I have daily, or maybe once a week or something, I pull this down and play a President's song. It's for fun.
I just hope you know, like that I don't know that there's a song that I loved more than Peaches growing up. Like, just hearing you just do that for 3 seconds was amazing. One of the first songs I ever, there's video of me out there somewhere as a 4-year-old singing that song. That was amazing.
Awesome.
But
I love it.
Chris, I mean, this is so fun talking music new and old. Again, you have a great new record out now. We're talking about the old stuff, but definitely want people to go check out Void Crusher and everything you're doing now. You want to tell us where to grab the new album, where we can find it, where we can find you online? You want to plug away? Tell us where to go now.
Pluggity, pluggity. Well, it's on every streaming service you can imagine under my name, Chris Ballew, Ballew. Or you can go to chrisballew.org, which is my website, and you can see all the videos that I've made, little lyric videos for all the albums. You can see my artwork. There's music on my website that's free. That's old bands of mine. There's a band I had called the Giraffes. There's Chris and Tad. There's the Dukes of Pop. There's Egg. There's all these like artifacts on there that I found when I was cleaning out a hard drive and realized, hey, I should just put this stuff up. So there's a lot of digging to be done for treasure seekers and stuff like that. So chrisballew.org.
Nice. Yeah, very good website to go to. Lots of good stuff on there. Well,
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Have we missed anything? I mean, do you have anything else? The new album's a big thing, but anything else coming up you want to tell people about? Anything that we somehow missed in our conversation?
I'm going to have salmon and rice and bok choy for lunch, so there is that.
That sounds pretty good. I think I'm just going to eat a bagel.
That's that's the big news from this end of things. Yeah, just going to have some lunch. No, I'm just, no, there's nothing really, no big deal to announce or anything or talk about besides, new record's out. And I hope everybody digs it. And the next record is taking shape as we speak, and when we're done here, I'm going to go retrack those vocals that I deleted right before we started talking.
Well, like we were talking about, I think that's a silver lining. I think the second take's going to be like, it's going to blow that one away. Like when it's all said and done, when the like it's no longer fresh, the whole deleting of that, you're going to be like, no, this was meant to be. Like this was probably the better way.
I wholeheartedly agree. It's going to be fantastic. All right, cool, man.
We're going to play now. If you're listening to the podcast, go grab the album. If you're listening on the radio show, we'll play you the whole album. And yeah, we'll get into it now. I'm Anthony Merchant talking to Chris Ballew right here on the Power Chord Hour. Woo!